Welcome to a mini-series of the I Am Radio broadcast show, and our mini-series is called Being in Love, What It Means to Be in Love. And this is the second iteration? Yeah, I'm iterating. I'll always be iterating. And I do appreciate everybody sticking around for my first few. Back, I had to warm up a little. So, this was actually, I'm going to be real with you, this was whispered to me to share in the middle of the night, and that might be an interesting place to start. So, we have the illusion of a personal experience, and we certainly do have a personal experience, and we also have a shared experience, and there's information coming in all the time. So, we are under the impression that we learn through books. Oh, I read it. I heard somebody say it. And yeah, that's true. We can get information that way. We can get information when someone is talking. We can get information through our eyes. And yet we're also a part of this energetic field, which is always constantly supplying information. And I'm not special in my ability to receive it. We're all receiving it. The difference is really are you willing to listen? Are you willing to work with it? Are you willing to sort out what is and what isn't yours? So, I do this. Here's a little guy. And we're going to focus in on the head and the heart. So, when you have a thought, and if you haven't explored what thinking is, what thinking does, and what thinking means, and you have a lot of thoughts, before you go exploring what your thoughts are doing or what your thoughts are saying are real, I really highly suggest exploring or thinking about what thinking is. Whenever, this is kind of like an aside, but it's practical and actionable and it'll make a fucking difference in your life. Let's say that there's something that you're trying to do, so you're pushing yourself, and that's not working. Then you can make space and clear what's there, and the action is natural. So if you're having trouble focusing your anxiety or a lot of thoughts, and you're like, try, maybe look at what would make it feel more comfortable for you to not be with your thoughts. And what was enlightening and helpful to me was seeing that what I thought I was doing with thinking, I wasn't. And it's a very ironic and somewhat trippy experience, but I totally suggest having some thoughts about thoughts before you have more thoughts about other stuff. So I started, we're talking today about this idea called What It Means to Be in Love. And I mentioned that was an idea that was given to me to teach to. And, I'll be real with you. I've been out on the gram for a while, and I've had varying degrees of comfort claiming some of the experiences that I have because they are different than what we are exposed to as normal, and yet they are. And I started to talk about how, you have your personal experience, and it includes thoughts and feelings. Hello, Kevin. And often, I was teaching this today to a client, it's almost like your thoughts and your feelings are trains, and your witness, who you really are, is on the platform at the station. And these thoughts and emotions will sweep through the station very convincingly with, people hanging out of the windows saying come on, buddy, let's go. And so you find, hold on, gotta make my trains better. And so you may find yourself on these roller coasters of thoughts and feelings, etc., that maybe you didn't have to go on if you had a little bit more awareness when they came through the station. So they're fixing the dryer right now. Hello. So here you are. Who you really are is the witness. And another way to think about that is, let me get some more paper. It's like everybody has a car. Everybody has a car, but within the car is who has the car, truly, which is a dot of the, like an aspect of the divine. When you are identified with your personal experience, you mistake who you truly are for the car. And a lot of fear comes from this experience because, oh man, the car can get scraped or damaged, or how does the car look relative to other cars? And, you know, oh man, when you got this car, the wheel was janky and you didn't know it, and you can't get the computer system under whatever. Color coding is so important. Yes. Can you tell me more about what you mean? So you are this, you are the witness. And one way I teach this as well is like, you know, imagine that your headspace is a boardroom. You've got all these different voices, all these people, all these things you've collected over the years that sound like you. So you have this voice in your head that's saying like, let me go over this conversation I'm going to have again. I can't believe homeboy did that. And like, you have all these thoughts. Hey, Brad, nice to see you. You have all these thoughts and they sound like you. And so you think, this is me. And that's the voice that says, I should be better at this. I'm not good enough at that. I'm so much cooler than them. Like, the voice says a lot of things. And it seems like it must be real because it's happening in your head and it's your voice. Much of that is just copy and pasted or modeled to you from your earlier environment in television. You learn how to describe things, how to talk about things, what to talk about based on the world that's around you. And that, like, just like you learn how to use your mouth that way, you learn how to use your head that way. And one of the most impactful things I think I could give you is to start to pay attention to the voice as if it wasn't you. Describe different point and subjects. Different colors are easy to describe. Oh yeah. Yes. Yeah. I think to describe different point and subjects, different colors are easy to describe. Are you saying when I'm drawing or like when you're talking, when in words? Sorry, I just want to make sure that I'm getting what you're saying. So you, the witness, is the same as you, this like aspect of God. And then you have a vehicle around you, and everybody's vehicle looks different. And some of the vehicles are like bumper cars and they go around and hit the other vehicles. And then you have vehicles who are like guiding vehicles. And it sometimes seems like some of the vehicles are better or cooler than others. And they do different things, but all of them are driven by God. And this is one way to find compassion for others and compassion for yourself when you're not quite able to see how everybody's role fits together. If they're here and it's happening, like God is behind it. And I'm going to be honest, I'm a little uncomfortable talking at this level, but this is what was here for me to do. So I'm gonna give it a go, and any feedback during or after this around, like, does it resonate? Can you hear me? Is it helpful? Would be really helpful to my conscious mind and coming on board with, like, this is what we're doing. So, going back to the idea of the witness, you have thoughts, you have feelings, but you aren't your thoughts, you aren't your feelings. And like I was saying, a lot of the thoughts that you have aren't even yours. They're just things you learn to think. just like in different countries, they have phrases for things that aren't it. If somebody is on top of the mountain, it might not actually mean they're on top of the mountain, and yet it's a phrase that we use to describe an experience. Similarly, we have these different things we do in our head that seem like, of course you would say that, but you only say it. It doesn't make sense to do except for that you learn to do it. So a lot of the thoughts that you have, you can actually be picking up from the environment around you. You can have, and feeling-wise, that's true as well. It takes a little practice to become connected to your own experience in a way that you can say, like, this is mine, this isn't mine. But you will start to notice, like, that not everything you feel and think is for you or helpful to you. And whether it's yours or not, and you're having it, it's still helpful to think about it like a train that comes through the station. So let's say you have a thought that comes through the station that's like, you're not doing this yet. Why don't you have more of that? You could, as the witness, see the train coming and think like, yeah, I'm going to get on that. And then that train usually takes you through a bunch of ideas and memories and comparison points that reinforce like, oh, you're right, I'm not where I'm supposed to be. And like, or when you notice that thought come, you wave and you let it go along. And that really is what mindfulness is. It's not wrangling your thoughts to like stillness. It's letting them go without thinking like, I got to get on this train. I got to go where this is going. This is real. Same with your feelings. When you color and to explain to us different colors, help understand what is what. I hope I'm making sense. Oh, okay. You're saying like use colors on here on my drawings. I think so. That's helpful. I appreciate you adding that and for taking the time to say it a few different times until I really had heard what you were saying. Okay, so if you're joining, what I'm talking about today is how we're on the being in love idea, and the way that I started that was sharing that this was an idea that I had received, and woohoo, and that's why I'm up here doing it. And I explained a little bit about that process. So whenever you think and feel for yourself, do not conform to your environment. Yes. What's interesting is that you can't really control wholly what you think or what you feel. It'll kind of like I said with the station, you're at the station and stuff passes through. The only real control you have is like, do I want to get on this? Which is the same as, do I want to identify with this? Which is the same as like, am I thinking that this... It's when you identify with something, usually it comes from a place of fear. Even if it's something positive, it could be like, I have this and they don't. It seems like not a fear thought, but it's a fear thought, and that you ultimately have an idea that you need to have something that they don't, so that you're important or special. And so all of those ideas, all of those thoughts that come through your headspace, you can hop on them, and they take you out of the present, and they take you out of your power, and they take you down these illusory, into these, it's basically your imagination. Like thinking, even if it seems really realistic or grounded, is still very imaginative. It's not here, it's here. And depending on how much information you can entertain mentally at one time, the more convincing you'll be to yourself and others. That's why I'm so good at this, because my headspace is like I carry all this information, and I really had to bust my ass to not take it seriously, to not buy into my own stuff, because it's really easy to explain anything if you want to. And you can make an argument for anything, and none of it is correct, because what's true can't really be said. There are too many complexities, too many invisible cause and effects things to really say like this because of this. You can't. And yet it can be helpful to start to stand on what can be said to reach towards what can't be said. And what can't be said is really where there's peace. That's when you don't get on these trains. Thoughts, feelings, comments, questions so far. Yours or somebody else's. And to think for yourself, to feel for yourself, it does take a little time to connect to what it is you actually value and why. I talked about this in, I don't remember if it was my broadcast the other night or on my other channel, but I think it was on Intergalactic Hotline. But you are trained to value certain things, and they become a frame through which you make choices. Well, this is important, and because that's important, I need to do the thing that's important. But you wouldn't think that that was important except for somebody taught you to think that it was important. And they don't necessarily need to sit down like I am and say, like, this is important. They could demonstrate it, and so you hop on that train. So it takes a little time, if you want to get familiar with your headspace, to tease out what is a valuable, helpful thought. And if you have read any of Einstein, Tesla, many artists, many writers, a lot of them, even a lot of scientists, a lot of them are saying, this isn't my idea, I just got it. And that's essentially what I'm saying is possible for everybody, is that just as you're open to lower level thinking, more fear-based thinking, you're also open and available to higher thinking and higher ideas. And when I say higher, it's almost like from a higher perspective that allows you to look down and see outside of yourself, which is the same as witnessing without fear. And from that place where there had been obstacles, you can see around them, because you're not making choices, you're not forecasting, you're not thinking from a place of limit. When you think, you use what you've known. It's historically generated, generally. And so when you're thinking about doing something, it's like you use a map that's been written. And if where you want to go doesn't have lines to it in your map, you're like, I can't go, so I won't try. But from a higher perspective, you can step outside of your mind, outside of what you learned, and think and be more creative, because essentially, that's who and what you are. I get what you mean, but also feel like I have a lot of control of my thoughts, maybe not my feelings so much. Yeah, that's great. And that's great that you can certainly develop control and leadership over your thoughts. A lot of them are patterns and habits. So depending on where you started or what you've gone through or what you've been exposed to, some people will have a lot of mental activity that comes every which way, and other people will have already developed the awareness that that's not helpful. And so they, over time, are able to narrow their focus and their attention to be less dominated by thought. But at first, sometimes it's just like a circus. So that's great that you feel that way already. I think what I find is that when they're feelings and thoughts aren't separate, the whole body is connected, the whole being is connected. I find that if you don't have a relationship with your emotions, they can't, or you don't want to feel them, or there's resistance to them, that can turn into mental energy and then run around like a bunch of thoughts. And just knowing that in itself can help you. All of the stuff I'm laying out today is a way to help you interrupt any kind of roller coaster mentally or emotionally where you're like, hey, do I need to get on this? Must I do this? And just that pause of hey, it's generally enough to tease out the witness from identifying with what is. And that again affords greater leadership over your experience, which then translates to greater, to more effective choice making, and blah, blah, blah. In today's world, peace of mind is very important. We obviously cannot control external factors, but we should know our limits, our strengths. Yes, it does seem helpful, and I think that is what I'm doing, what I'm adding for, because there's a lot of information out right now that has a bunch of fear in it. And if you don't have leadership of your personal experience, it's pretty uncomfortable. if you're not able to say like, I want to worry about this and I don't want to worry about that, worrying doesn't do anything, but just let's say we let that be like, I want to do this and not that. It's really important to be able to know what you're even doing to make those choices. So again, this is really just around mindfulness, which is essentially being in love. I try to stay middle of the road and open-minded to the world. That's great. That sounds really useful. Hey, David. Hey, Charles. Okay, I'm going to wrap up. I want to keep these relatively short. Yesterday's went on. And if I talk about it, that'll make today's longer. Does anyone have anything before I go? So these are pretty open format. What I'm talking about is what it means to be in love. And that's really being present as the witness, having the capacity to choose faith over fear or love over fear, and ultimately embody that and have that be your default. It does take, from my experience, a bit of training. I still have it's almost like new consciousness, new levels, new awareness gets pushed in, and my body's like, oh, that reminds me. we have this belief that doesn't fit this level of growth or happiness. And so then that'll come up to go out. But even just being aware of that process has helped make it more comfortable. And what I would love to do in all of this is, just really remind everybody that you are directly connected to the information that you would need that's right for you, to be able to make choices for you, to know, how you're feeling, what you're thinking, what you need to own, what isn't yours. The more aware you are of this, from my vantage point, seems to be the more available you are to actually be with and help other people, and participate on teams and things. Otherwise, you're you're just spilling shit on everybody. So it's know what your shit is. Have a practice of working with it, a ritual of tending to it, being present to it. And then that allows you to not make more, but also to go places. If you're riding on every thought or emotion train that comes through the station that's this isn't right, I'm offended, I don't want to do this, I'm never going to get where I want to go. You can't get where you want to go if you're riding every train that comes through. And like I was saying, from what I can tell, most of them aren't helpful. And so just, again, being aware of this space within you can help you create room between you and those experiences that you don't really need to have. It's like emotional mental drama. It's like a quarterback who does not let his emotions get too high or too low so that he can command the moment. Yes, that's I like that a lot. That's great. Because you want to be open to feel, you want to be open to the thoughts, you want to be able to hear, you can have really incredible ideas, and sometimes the ideas translate directly into an action, and sometimes the ideas, are more situated in time. Hello. I said, I received this idea to do this, and I have a practice of being able to feel there's a texture to information that's coming from outside yourself, and you can become familiar to it. And so anything else before we close today? What I wanted to talk about, or what I thought we were going to be talking about, was hope and faith, the differences or distinctions between the two, but that must be another day. I appreciate everybody coming out and participating, and I'm really open to having this be a dialogue, so I appreciate the participation, and please continue to come and share, say what's there for you. If it's something that I don't want to get to or I can't get to, I'll do my best to get back to you later. And that's it. Thanks for coming out. Have a great day.